that we do. We have a tool library, we have an orchard, we have a pollinator program, and then we do some advocacy on the side, which is why we're here today. Because, like many of you, my personal story, I have a story with air quality where I remember I was in middle school, and who here plays kind of sports or that sort of thing, running around? Yeah, I was playing basketball. I was okay. Not a great basketball player, but good for middle school. But it started to happen that I couldn't breathe when I was running back and forth on the court and found out, oh, I have asthma. And we eventually connected it to kind of a factory and a mill that was close by to my house that once we moved, my asthma went away. So I have that kind of personal experience. And like the neighborhood that I grew up in, Lents also struggles with bad air quality. And that's actually from a lot of different reasons. And I know the senators and representatives who spoke earlier mentioned this a little bit, but we have diesel issues, so unfiltered diesel engines running up and down I-205. We've got traffic emissions that are not diesel, just other traffic emissions that are also toxic, and then we've also got some industrial sources. We have auto body paint shops that are spraying, and the paint fumes are just flying onto the street, and kids are walking by on their way to school. And then, like many Oregon communities, it's an issue of environmental justice for Lents. Bad air quality is actually a part of a long history of harm to the land and the people living in Lents, starting back when Foster Road was part of the Oregon Trail, and the Chinook people were displaced and removed from the area through to the 1970s when I-205 cleaved the neighborhood in half. They just demolished a whole bunch of homes and put a highway right through. And funny story is that the elementary school, Lent Elementary, is right next to that highway. So we've got students going to school every day next to a highway that's got diesel emissions flying out, constantly polluting their playground structures, their school. The parks are not too far away from that either. Foster Road runs through the neighborhood, 82nd Avenue, 92nd Avenue, Woodstock Boulevard. It kind of just piles up. There's a lot of pollution. And so in recent years, since 2000, the neighborhood has become dramatically more diverse. As people have been displaced, people of color have been displaced, especially from inner parts of the city. We've also had a lot of immigrants and refugees moving into the neighborhood from outside of the country. So now half of the people in Lents are people of color. 2 in 5 speak languages like Spanish, Vietnamese, Russian, Cantonese at home as their kind of preferred communication. And we've been doing a lot of listening and engagement, and air quality has been coming up, and it's been kind of a uniting issue across different groups. So no matter who we're talking to, who we're working with, we typically do hear stuff about the air. And so we tested the air. It's a good sort of first step. We worked with Oregon Environmental Council and Rose Community Development through the Lents Youth Initiative, and we went around with this little thing called a microethylometer. It's like a backpack with a straw sticking out, and it measures the black carbon in the air, and that is a good indicator of diesel pollution. We actually found that, and we're not scientists. It was youth-led, staff-led, so there's a caveat that the data is not going to go into a scientific journal, but the results that we found were actually really scary. The pollution was very high, even in places like our orchard that are tucked away off of the highway, in a natural area. We found that basically all spots that we tested, even indoor spaces, were either at or above the thresholds for black carbon. So that might merit some follow-up, and it really does merit some action. This was sort of a wake-up call. Last session, we supported the diesel bill that was in session, and of course, I think we heard earlier, and I hope that talking with you all now, we can sort of leave this room with a sense of renewed purpose, as opposed to feeling sort of depressed by the outlook that the legislators put forward, that they're not getting a lot of support from their colleagues in other parts of the state, and so certain bills may not pass, like the 1508, which is the one that was drafted with the program fully in mind, and now we're looking at another bill. So I encourage you to kind of be very skeptical and be focused on what's going to protect public health, what's going to protect your health when you're in these meetings, when you're talking with folks. And I just want to talk a little bit about our engagement and how we got involved with the Cleaner Air Oregon process, because we did the diesel bill last time. It was kind of upsetting that it didn't pass. It passed in a smaller form, but it didn't go all the way that it needed to. So we got together with a Spanish-speaking group of Latinx mothers and who are in the Lents community, and we organized with them to educate them about the rulemaking process. We worked with other organizations in Portland who also had Spanish speakers to turn them out to events, and to have DEQ engage in what was, I think, somewhat odd for them to be kind of doing an event that's in multiple languages at once, and people are asking tough questions, and people are sort of really engaged with what are these rules, how do they affect me? So we continued that. Their kids actually attend a school, the Lent Elementary that I mentioned earlier, that's right next to the freeway, and they have to walk. And on their walk to school, they're encountering industrial pollution, they're encountering diesel and other fumes along I-205, they're crossing over I-205 to get to school as well. And that experience really motivated them to be engaged in this rulemaking process, much like the industry groups, much like the community groups who have been attending these stakeholder meetings for 18 months. Quite a lot of time for industry and community to spend working together with an agency. And you know, at the end of this, we showed up to testify, we wrote comments, rules got proposed, and you know, we didn't get everything that we wanted. The community, I mean, I remember our talking points, we had 4 or 5 different things that we wanted to see better. We wanted to see change, we wanted to see improved from what came out of this kind of compromise. So we started at a compromise. And I think that that's, at least like for the perspective for what's going on today, you know, this process of industry coming with this other bill at the last minute is a typical process that folks do. I mean, it's easier to just at the end come around and put a bill forward, and it seems like now we're kind of moving in the right direction, which I think we appreciate as community members, that they're not just going to pass the industry bill, right? That's a better outcome. But today is a chance to kind of insist and demand, as Chair Kafori said, that we actually do have bills that impact and protect our health, that stop us from breathing this bad air, that, you know, for most of us who live in the Portland area or Multnomah County is really, really bad. And I think, at least like in terms of the larger sort of overarching thing, like we need to protect our health over industry profits. Senator Taylor pointed out very, very clearly, I thought, that there are businesses that do these sorts of filtering of pollutants. They throw a little attachment onto their industrial processes. It doesn't cost a ton of money, and then they have very improved, similar with diesel, very improved air quality. You put a diesel filter on an engine, you don't get as much diesel pollution, you get almost none instead. So I just hope that, I don't know if everyone in here is going to be meeting with legislators, but I do think clean air is our right. And I know that earlier there's like feeling a little bit, I was feeling a little bit demoralized by like the 1508's not going to pass, it's dead. I still believe in 1508, I still want to ask for 1508, but I hope that as we start to look at 1541, we can insist with our legislators that they include the best aspects of the original bill in the new bill, so that we get the closest that we possibly can to protecting our air.